everyone. So today we are going to talk about one of the most popular authors right now and what I feel about her books and my top 10 favorites. So today we're going to talk about Freida McFadden. She is huge. She's been huge for a few years now, and her thrillers are mostly good. I have read almost all of them, and I have some thoughts. So we are going to rank my top 10. I'm going to tell you kind of what I feel about it, and I'm going to do it without spoilers so that you can go and read them later. So before I start, I do want to throw in an honorary mention. So I did not add this in my top 10, and I'll explain why in a second. So my honorary mention is The Widow's Husband's Secret Lie. This is like a tiny novella, and it is satirical. So the reason I love this book is because if you love Freida McFadden, this book makes fun of her other books. So she wrote it to be hilarious and funny. And I don't think you should read it if you have not read most of her books, but if you have, it's priceless. It is so funny. She literally makes fun of her characters and some of the plot twists in some of her books. It's a super short book. You can read it in like 3 hours. It's hysterical. So go read that one. The only reason I didn't put that in my top 10 is because it's so different than her other stuff. It is not a thriller. It is meant to be a thriller, but it's like satirical, so it's like funny. It's great. So go read that one. So starting with number 10. My top 10 are books that I really like. There are a lot of her other books that I have read that did not make this list. So this is my top 10 of ones that I just really enjoyed. Maybe the plot twist worked. Something about it was great, and I loved it. So number 10, The Tenant. This one just came out a month or two ago. It is number 10 because I didn't love it as much as some of the others because I felt like it took a long time to get to where I got excited about it. She normally writes a lot of her books in parts. So by part 2, I finally was like, okay, I'm picking up what she's trying to like lay down, you know? So it took a little while, which is why it's number 10. But once it got to that point, I thoroughly enjoyed it. This follows a couple who need some money, so they invite a tenant to stay with them, and then some things go a little bit crazy. So yeah, without giving anything away, that is the gist of that one. So definitely read it. I don't think you would figure out the twist, especially if you've not read most of her books. If you've read most of her books, they kind of follow a formula, but I didn't fully pick this one up, so not too bad. Number 9, The Perfect Son. This is number 9 because I did figure this one out. I felt like it was very obvious what the twist was, and so it kind of knocked down some of my stars a little bit. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I figured it out. This follows a woman who is kind of obsessed with her son. And her son is a little sketchy and does some things that make him look like a suspect for a murder. And a lot of things unfold, and you kind of figure out whether or not it was him or not. And that is not giving anything away because it's pretty obvious in the book that that's the way it's going. So go check that one out. It is a good read. It was just a little more obvious than some of her others. Number 8, The Housemaid's Secret. This is the second book in her Housemaid series, and I liked it. It was not as good as The Housemaid, which is further up on my list, but Millie and Enzo, Millie is the main character in The Housemaid. This is following their story. And I'm not going to give too much away in this one, especially because you really have to read The Housemaid to kind of understand this whole dynamic with Millie. But I loved this series. Book 3 and then the novella that just came out were not very good, and they did not make my list. The second book was good, not as good as the first. But it is a great place to start if you are trying to get into thrillers because it is the most easy to understand. I felt like this series was a very good intro into thrillers and still unpredictable. Number 7 is Never Lie. And I love the gist of Never Lie. It just didn't hit me like some of the other ones do. Never Lie is about a woman who goes to see a counselor, therapist, and some weird things happen and the therapist goes missing, and she finds some tapes that help lead her to what happened. The gist was great. I didn't love how it all played out, but I loved the concept behind it, which is why it became number 7. It is good, and it is one that I feel like was not overly creepy, thrillery, but it was just enough that like gripped you. So entertaining, just not my favorite of hers. Number 6 is Ward D. Now, I didn't know if I should put this at number 6 because ultimately it was not up there with my favorites. The reason I moved it up my list when I originally had it lower was because it's so different than her other stories. Ward D is about someone who has to go to a mental institute because she's working there. There's a massive twist in this one that I did not figure out. The twist was twisty and I was not even close to figuring this one out. Another reason it got pushed up my list. It just kind of had a little bit of a paranormal twist to it that I didn't love, which is why it was not one of my favorites. But if you want something different than your normal thriller reads, this is a great one to go with. Now, moving on to some of her books that have felt similar to some of her other ones, but I absolutely ate up. The Coworker. So, The Coworker follows a woman who has a coworker that is just a little bit weird. And she feels like something's off with this girl, and she kind of just wants to figure out what is going on. I don't know what it was about this one because there's nothing that like really stood out as just different, but I loved it. I thought the coworker who she was trying to figure out was a very intriguing person. She was weird, but she was intriguing, and I was like, what is her deal? So I enjoyed it because it was just, I don't know. I just, the quirkiness of this book was much different than a lot of her other books, which I really enjoyed. Number 4. Now, I'm going to say this one, but it has a little bit of an asterisk by it because there are some triggers. So, The Teacher was fantastic. However, without giving too much away, there's a lot that has to do with like teacher-student relationships, and it was a little bit weird. And the twist was a little bit weird. So, did I want to figure out what happened? Oh yeah. Was I invested? Oh yeah. Was I a little weirded out and creeped out by the end because of what the twist actually was? Yeah. So I loved it. I loved it, but should I say I loved it? It was a different one. It was a little interesting, but I did like it. So for my top 3, number 3 is The Housemaid. I just talked about the second book in that series, but I can't talk about the second without talking about the first. The Housemaid is beautiful. I loved it. I will say, I did read it right after The Last Miss Parrish, and they're pretty much the same book, which is partially why it's not my favorite, because I did love it, but I was a little bit like, I feel like I just read this in my other book. So that did kind of knock it down a little bit for me because I felt like it wasn't original, but the concepts behind this book was amazing. I don't want to give much away on this one because I feel like it really unravels as you read it. But if you want a very good series, thriller series, The Housemaid's a great one to go with. And it obviously became a series because the first one was so good. Number 2, The Boyfriend. I don't know why I loved this one, but I absolutely loved it. This came out probably 6 months ago, and I don't know. I think I never figured it out. There were so many people that could have been the culprit at the end with the whole mystery that I just never figured it out, which made me just like really want to finish. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Even the character at the beginning that was a little bit creepy, I was like, oh my gosh, could it be him? And I still was completely floored. I, about halfway through, swore I knew what was going on. And I was very, very wrong. I was very, very wrong. And it's funny because everyone that I've had read it since then has been like, oh, I know who it is. I'm like, just keep reading because they're probably wrong, because she blindsided me completely in this book. And if you can blindside me, you get some extra points. Now, my favorite Freida McFadden book, I think might be a little controversial because I don't think it's most people's favorite. I loved The Inmate. And I feel weird saying that because I think I loved it because I actually was endeared to the villain. I kind of liked him. And I don't want to say anything else because I don't want to give it away, but I felt like I had a feeling this person was the culprit. Then I ended up really liking this person. And then when I found out it really was that person, I was like, oh, I was hoping I was wrong, because I thoroughly enjoyed the person it was. So it just evoked some emotion in me that the other ones didn't. And I really, really enjoyed that. So if you want one that's going to like tug at your heartstrings and make you be like, oh, but should I like the villain? Because I kind of do. It's a great one to read. She did a really good job with that, I think. So there are lots of other Freida books. She's probably got 15 more than this. And I've read most of them. These are my top 10 that I feel like you should read if you have not read Freida McFadden, or if you're looking for another Freida McFadden book that you should read. You need to check these out, because I feel like these are just fantastic, easy reads that will keep you wanting more. Comment below if you've read any of these and what your thoughts are, and subscribe to our page for more awesome book content. Bye, guys.